All right, now you look at on the browser, we now have all the users we created, all the users, you see them here. Let's go back to our code from where we started. What was the issue then is I forgot to export this function and I was already calling it in the controller, so it couldn't find it. So this one also in the controller, we export it, module.export, and then you put a function. In the user also, we have to export the one in the user service. Now look at what we have been able to achieve. We first have to create our user route. Now in this user route, we have to create all the routes that are available in our project in under user. And we know we are going to create user, then we'll also have another one that will update user, that we get a single user, and we have another one that will create the user and delete user. All these routes are defined in the user routes, and that we are going to we imported all of them one by one using this kind of object importing them because we exported them like this also, so we can import them individually as a function from the user controller. Then we call them here. Then inside each of these functions, inside this file, the user controller file, we import the service. In this case, we imported everything in the service. That particular object we are exporting as a user service. So we did import them one by one. The reason we did this here because we have this same function, in this place with the same name. So when we import everything as a user service, we can then be calling user service to get the function name. So after we get the users by calling the get all user code or function in the user service, we can then return all the users as JSON. When we do this, we'll be able to see the data on our client app. So this is what we have been able to achieve. And then in order for all these things about the users to be accessible or activated in the project, in our software, we need to link it in the app route. And what we just do in the app route is to create a route, a router, and then we specify all our directories, all our URLs in this file. In this case, we are specifying that anything that have to do with /user, this express should make sure that it uses the user route, and we are importing the user route from our file, which is the user.route. Now, if you check the user.route, we exported the router, and the router is having all these routes slash, and then we have also slash column ID. All this one have been commented because we've not created this function, so it won't lead to error. And then we come to the app route. We said everything from the user route should be used to handle /user related requests. And then in order for this app route to also be activated or to be called in the project, we need to link it to the main.js. Once we link this app route to main.js, this app route is going to call the user route, which is the user.route. And once it's called the user.route for the linking, making sure that it's in our node project, this one also is going to call all the functions linked here. If we link all of them already, it's going to make sure that all of them which are in this file are also called. And then when you go to this particular controller file, the controller file also is calling the user service. So the controller file is also going to bring in everything in the user service that is used in the controller in the service file. And in that case, the service file is also going to be part of the Node.js process. That means all the files relating to the user by just linking the linking them in the app.route, which is linked in the main.js. We have brought in everything relating to that in our project. But then if you want to remove the user route, maybe we have issues related to user route, what we can just do, just like the way I commented, is to come and remove the user route. All the code we have written both in the route, in the controller, in the service concerning the user, all of them will no longer be active in the project. This is a way that we can easily even control different parts of our project, and we can easily manage our project. Now you look at the user route, it's a very short code, it's simple. All the route is just route that will be here. You don't need to write any kind of bulky large amount of code. Just specify the route here and you are done with this file. And then you come to the controller, you do all the data passing that you need to do in the controller. If we are requested, let's say for example, we want to create our get one, let's say get user, just to get a single user. We can then say if this is an async, and we can pass in our and response subject, and then we call this. So if we are expecting an ID, const ID, we can do this, get it in this controller, request.param. So we are expecting it as a parameter. So if we are expecting it, we can as an object, because this will be an object of ID. So we can say that is we are expecting something like ID here. Then if we log this, you're going to see we have ID, ID. So, but what we want to do in order to get the this ID could be name. Let's say name. We have name. We don't have ID in that file. So let's just say name here. So what we can do, we can say const user equals. Okay, no. We want to use a single user. So we just say const the user. Alternatively, instead of just doing that, we can say return user service. Oh, sorry. What is that? User service dot get user, this particular one, and then we pass our name because we are expecting a parameter called name. So we are going to create this user now in the user service, this function. So we come here and create our service, const get user, and then we also a function, and now we are expecting a name as a parameter. So we can then return. Now, in order to make this easier, we call this file sorry, users. So we create user as a global, as a property here. So we call const users equals this particular array. I think this is fine now. So here we can then look for users dot find. We are looking for a particular user dot find where name, we have a user dot name. You know, we have name there is equals the name that is passed from the browser, from the client. So this is what we are returning to the user. So we come here and then export our get user function. That's all with this stage. What we need to do now is to come to the user route. Okay, we have something in the user service we imported mistakenly. Let's look at it. What do we need? What is it? User. Is it in the user route? Let's see. Okay, let's come to the user route and then uncomment this. So here we are expecting a limited of ID, so put the name here. All right, then everything is already linked now. So when we come here, okay, do we have issue with in the controller? Let's look at in the controller. Do we have? Oh, we've not exported in the controller. So we have get user. All right, so this is where we have the issue importing right here. That's why it was telling us secular dependency. We imported this controller in what we are importing here user route. We imported this particular controller in user route. Now importing user route again in controller is going to create secular dependency. That is each of the file depending on both each of them, which is not a nice thing. It means that user controller is going to bring in user route, and user route is also going to bring in user controller, which is abnormal. And that's why it's telling us secular dependency. So let's see again, we save our file. Now our code is okay. So if we come to our browser, let's look at the service and look at the name we have there. So we have a name called Joy. So let's just copy Joy and come to the browser. Now we come here and say name. Okay, we are using an okay, we just pass Joy here. So since we are using the parameter, we are supposed to, we could just leave it with that, what is it called? with ID here. Yeah, we can just leave it. And then when we come here, so we put our here, ID here, ID here. All right, so now we are able to get our joy. So if we come to the browser now, in the console, the request that was executing, if we run our code again, we have joy. I think we are having an async somewhere. This is the service. Let me remove async in the service function. Okay, this doesn't have async. Let's look at the controller. The controller is calling return. Is the service also doing return? Return users dot fine. Let's be fine. We are able to get our username here, same name. Yeah, username is joy. We'll find here. Equals joy. Okay, I think I'm going to use includes here. The issue here is the return. I'm looking at why is it not returning something. Okay, let's see. And the controller, what do we have? Rest. Oh yeah, this is where I'm having the issue. I'm supposed to. This return doesn't work in Express. You need to explicitly correct dot something like JSON. So that's why we're having the issue. So we can then call the user service like this, and you come to the browser now. If you call this there, we are not seeing our joy data. Now we've been able to use the name of the person as the parameter and ID to get the particular data. In this case, joy. Out of all the users, we've been able to filter and the users and look for joy and return joy to the user. So this is particularly the error we had. There was no anything relating to Express here to terminate this request, and that was why it wasn't working. So instead of calling this here, you can use the pattern what we did in the previous example. We first call it separately, import and got the result, then send it as JSON to the user. Alternatively, you can just call the user service, the get user passing the ID here, and it will be okay. If this is an asynchronous service, you know that it's an asynchronous stuff, you can then put your await inside here and it will be fine. But since this is not asynchronous, it's saying that this await is not relevant. But if we come here and then make this async, it will then be very relevant in that code. So if you come back again to the controller, you see that there is no more complaint here. This is not working very well. But if you remove async in this function and you put await here, it will not be necessary. It's telling that the await you are calling here is not necessary because the function that you are awaiting is not asynchronous. So you see our code is still working perfectly. So I don't know if you have any questions with what we are able to do tonight. And with the examples we've set up now, we've been able to see how to set up an Express app from the ground up and then create our folders. What we are doing now, what we just set up now is basically a backend project. There is no configuration for front end code yet because we are not thinking in terms of the front end yet. So we don't have any folder to handle HTML and CSS related files. Everything we are handling now is just for the backend. So when we get to possibly tomorrow, then we could bring in configuring Express for front end related tasks. which then we can serve HTML file and visualize our site in a more friendly manner rather than just seeing JSON data on the browser like this. We can then see something more appealing, like HTML related data. If you have any questions, you can ask before we close. Okay, so do you really understand everything, or are you having issue, or you are very much enjoying the session? Okay, so no problem. You try before tomorrow class to get along with it. I will put this thing online this evening or tomorrow morning. And if you have any question, you reach me. It's always good you practice as fast as you can so that the thing will no longer pile up. By the time we do the next session tomorrow, it will be an addition to what we've done today. If you, before you know, you have so many things to practice, which will not become very large for you to handle at the time. All right. Do enjoy the rest of the evening till we meet again tomorrow.